Welcome to the 10th session of The Power of the Mind. I'm Lady Wynette Peters, the founder and CEO of the Extraordinary Achievers. Today we look at mental awareness, balancing, and well-being.
The Extraordinary Achievers Show, hosted by Chief Lady Wynette Peters, a multi-entrepreneur, empowerment speaker, confidence mentor, positive lifestyle coach, and a humanitarian ambassador whose sound of victory testimony has inspired thousands around the world. Founded in 2014, the Extraordinary Achievers Talk Show presents positive stories to inspire, motivate, and encourage others.
What mental health needs is more sunlight, more candor. Meditation by Glenn Close. Today we're joined by Simon Blake OBE, the Chief Executive of the Mental Health First Aid England, and Coach Lade, the author of Breaking the Barriers in Early Intervention into Mental Health Issues. Some of the most comforting words in the universe are "me too." That moment when you find out that your struggle is also someone else's struggle, that you're not alone, and that others have been down the same road. Let me introduce you to one of our guests. Simon Blake OBE is an amazing man in our community. He is the Chief Executive of Mental Health First Aid England, the Deputy Chair of Stonewall and Companion of the Chartered Management Institute. His career has been focused on social justice issues, starting in HIV and sexual health, working for over a decade promoting the rights of children and young people. Along with inclusive health education services and support for young people, Simon has written over 50 guides, books, and resources, addressing all aspects of personal social health, education, and citizenship. In 2020, he co-edited a collection of stories called Sisters and Brothers, stories about the death of a sibling. He is a runner and an animal lover. He has a dog called Dolly and shares a horse called Boris, who he has known to fall off now and again. Simon Blake OBE is a keen runner, competitive horse rider, and a dog lover, as we just heard. So we've got a lot to learn from him. But today we're not here to talk about his love of animals. We're here to talk about what he does. But before we go that, we're going to talk about something that I found on the internet. I found out some headlines that are pretty amazing. I took a snapshot of that article. It was on making a difference media. Number one, it said, remove unnecessary stresses and role modeling behaviors that cause us to have burnout. Avoid absolute clarity on the priorities. Ensure flexibility and balance. Set up and pack up at the end of the day. Take time away from the desk for exercise. Have meeting controls, take time off. Be sure to connect and to disconnect. Build organizational resilience over the summer. Make sure there is support. We welcome Simon Blake OBE. Welcome to the Extraordinary Achievers.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for taking time out to be with us today. Could you please tell us a little bit about your organization and what your organization does?
Sure. So Mental Health First Aid England is a social enterprise, which means that all of our work is about achieving our vision. And that vision is to improve the mental health of the nation. And specifically, we want to train 1 in 10 of the adult population in mental health awareness, mental health skills, and mental health knowledge. And 1 in 10, because we believe that that is the tipping point at which we'll create that cultural change where these sorts of conversations are normal, where people believe and understand that all of us have mental health, that all of us will need help at some point, and that we are able to tackle stigma and to signpost to sources of help and support. So we've been around about 10 years, founded by Poppy Jaman, and there are instructors who work up and down the country, one of whom is Lade, who I'm delighted to be here with tonight. And they train people to be mental health first aiders, which essentially means exactly what it says on the tin. So first point of contact, people are able to have non-judgmental conversations, who are able to challenge stigma, who are able to provide that first line of support and to direct people to other sources of support and information.
Amazing, fantastic. Thank you for that, Simon Blake OBE. If you just joined us, we have Simon Blake OBE on the show tonight. And now we're going to introduce our next guest. And just look at this. Coach Lade is the author of Breaking the Barriers, the Early Intervention into Mental Health Illness. Coach Lade, you're a motivational and empowerment speaker, a mental health first aid instructor, international inspirational, and a mental health advocate. Coach Lade, in your book, Breaking the Barriers, the book I have right here with me, which is so exciting, we're going to be giving away 2 of these books on this show. And I would like to read some of the chapters that you have. You have chapter 1, is mental health. Chapter 2, factors that cause stigma against mental illness. Chapter 3, factors that may cause mental illness. Chapter 4, the media and the mental illness. Chapter 5, cultural attitudes regarding mental illness in the BAME communities. Chapter 6, the role of the government. Chapter 7, common mental health issues. Chapter 8, the role of diet on our mental health and mood. Chapter 9, social media, depression, and suicide. Chapter 10, the entertainment industry. Chapter 11, mental health and spirituality. Chapter 12, you conclude. And I quite enjoyed reading the conclusion of it because I thought the conclusion was absolutely well done. It's an amazing book, viewers. I have read this book a couple of times, and I've ensured that today 2 of you are going to be able to also win this book. Chapter 12 in concluding says, mental health issues are not matters to joke about. If the illness impacts a person's quality of life and affects their ability to live a normal life, it becomes a disability. Undiagnosed mental illness is unseen silent killer that takes no prisoners and does more damage to a person's self-worth than any amount of physical abuse ever can. Coach Lade, we welcome you on the Extraordinary Achievers Show. Thank you for taking time to join us. Coach Lade, we're just coming back to you. Just one more second. We'll be back with Coach Lade in a minute. Okay, you're back. Coach Lade, welcome to the Extraordinary Achievers. Welcome. We will be straight back with Coach Lade. We're going to go back to Simon Blake OBE. Simon Blake, what are the mental first aid training skills and why are they important to you, and why are first aid training skills important to us?
Sure. So mental health first aid is really about understanding signs and symptoms of poor mental health. Understanding and developing skills to be able to talk non-judgmentally, and then understanding how to help somebody to get the support that they need. Now, that's underpinned by us all understanding our own frame of reference. So my experience of mental health as a white gay man, grew up in Cornwall, and has all sorts of particular experiences, mean that what I understand about mental health will be different than what you will understand, and what the person listening to us will understand. So it's really about recognizing what we've learned, what we've internalized, what we believe, and then making sure that that doesn't prejudice or color our way of having positive, non-judgmental conversations. And so mental health first aid is really, really key, because it means that we can spot when people are having when people are experiencing poor mental health, and help them access sources of support. But it's also important because what we know from training hundreds of thousands of people as mental health first aiders in this country, and then millions of people around the world, is that those people to go on to be champions at work and in their community, doing lots to raise awareness and understanding of mental health, because our starting point has to be creating that awareness and understanding so that we're all comfortable and confident talking about it, and recognizing that it's an issue that affects all of us at various points in our lives. And if we can do that, then we can start changing the world, because we know that the stigma and the silence hurts people. We know that poor mental health affects people who experience social and economic inequalities, including structural racism, differently. And that has to change. And so that starts with us breaking the silence, talking about it, understanding it. And mental health first aids have a really critical role in achieving that.
That's absolutely fantastic. And I think it also takes away that stigma that is something that we cannot talk about, something that cannot be mentioned, and something that is a labeling of others. So thank you for sharing that. Simon Baker, it is your mission to train 1 in 10 of the population in England on mental health first aid training skills. How do you intend to achieve this?
Sure. So first and foremost, we work and we train instructors, and those instructors live in every part of England. So we've got people who are trained as instructors in the northeast as much as we have in the southwest of the country, and right the way through. And those people work either in organisations, and they train mental health first aiders within their organisation. So big corporate organisations tend to do that, and so other small and medium enterprises and local authorities and the NHS. You then have people who work for an organisation but are trained as an instructor, and they train others in their community. So that might be somebody who works for a local mind organisation, for example. And then you have independent people who are self-employed or part of a training association or organisation, such as the NAUS organisation, which Lade is Lade's organisation. And then together, what those people do is they train people in workplaces, in communities, so whether that's within churches, whether that's within schools, whether that's in sport and recreation centres. And at the moment, we're at about 1 in 67, 1 in 68 of the adult population, which is really, really exciting that we're moving from only being around in this country for about 10 years to get to that 1 in 10. And I guess the really important thing just to say at this moment in time is that this time last year we did most of our training in face-to-face environments. And of course, most of us are missing hugging, seeing, being in meetings with people now. So we do the training digitally. So it's done online. And that is really, really important as we go through this pandemic, which we know is impacting on people's mental health, that we're able to continue providing that training to achieve our mission of 1 in 10 in this moment when we know that people need it most.
Thank you. We appreciate that insight. Coach Lade, we would like to welcome you back. Coach Lade, can you hear us now?
Yes, I can. So sorry about earlier. The internet just dropped off.
No, that's okay. That happens. So many of us are on the internet now. In the COVID times, that's where we survive now, is on the internet, our playground.
Yeah.
Coach Lade, could you please tell our viewers and our audience what is mental awareness?
Mental health awareness is an awareness of who you are, what your being is. So, for example, if you just want to understand what the meaning of mental health is, and one of my favorite definitions for mental health is as defined by the World Health Organization, and it says that it is the state of well-being where a person is able to realize what their potentials are, they're fulfilling their potentials, and then they're able to cope with the normal stresses of life, and also the ability for them to be able to be productive in the community where they are in. So, an awareness of all of those three key things in that definition for me defines what mental health awareness is your ability to understand what your potentials are, your ability to understand what the stressors in your lives are, and also your ability to be able to cope and be productive in the community where you're placed. So, where that is affected, there is a need for you to be aware of why it's affected, when it's affected, and what can be done when it's affected. So, mental health awareness is a whole bunch around the journey about our mental well being. So, starting from who we are, understanding when things go wrong, what do we do? And of course, being able to signpost. Simon has said earlier that I'm a mental health first aid instructor, a very proud one at that. And one of the key things that we're teaching people to be able to understand is understand themselves, know what the signs are, and of course, signposting people to the right services, to the professionals. So mental health awareness is a whole gamut of lots of things to talk about.
And Coach Lade, how would you describe balanced mental well-being?
A balanced mental well-being is when you are able to know what you're just able to, you have an equilibrium. So a balanced mental well-being is not when things are perfect. It's not when you tick all the boxes. It's just the ability for you to know yourself, know what the good signs are, know what the bad signs are, and knowing when to seek for help. That is really absolutely important. A balanced mental well-being is the ability for you to cope when life stresses come. So let's all ask ourselves, what are the various life stressors? Of course, there are different types of life stressors. There is bereavement. Of course, we're all in a very tough time now on the surface of the earth, the pandemic. Just yesterday, we're told that over 100,000 people have died in the United Kingdom. That is an extremely high number. Under that seat, a lot of families who are grieving, who are in bereavement, that is a life stressor. Terminal illness is a life stressor. A loss of a relationship, a loss of job, financial difficulties, several things could cause a life stressor. Could cause the stresses in our various lives. So it's the ability for you to know how to cope when those, it doesn't mean you won't shake. You will shake a little bit, but it's just the ability for you to be able to bounce back. And I suppose mental wellness or mental well-being is very much linked to emotional resilience as well, because emotional resilience is the ability for you to be able to bounce back when you're stretched beyond your comfortable zone.
Thank you, Coach Lade. We really appreciate and truly appreciate your input. I'm very much aware of the fact that from the day that I met you a few years ago, you were very, very passionate about mental health awareness, and it's amazing and absolutely fantastic that you have brought out the book, and your book, I am certain, will help many, many others. And thank you for that. We'll be back with you in a moment. We're just going to go back to Simon Blake, OBE. Simon Blake, in the BAME community, if one was to take this training, what changes are we anticipated to see?
There you go. I was on mute. I realised myself. Apologies about that. So this training, mental health first aid training, is relevant to all communities. And the most important part of it is that it would increase an understanding around what mental health is, exactly as Adi was saying, how it affects people, how it affects different communities, and what we can do to start having conversations. And I think what it would also do is encourage people to know and understand more about mental health, to think more about how it affects the communities that we live in and across, and how it affects our friends, our families, our neighbours, the people that we work with, so that we can all become more confident and competent in having conversations. And one of the things which I talk to people quite a lot is that, you know, conversations that some people find difficult don't necessarily get easier, because sometimes the content is difficult, sometimes it can be distressing, or it can be sad. But those difficult conversations, those conversations that people find difficult, become easier to have the more that you have them. And I think that is true when you're talking about mental health. It's true when you're talking about death. It's true when you're talking about anything which can cause human suffering. So, you know, anybody in any community, so including the BME communities, it would be about improving the confidence and understanding to know what mental health is, why it's important we talk about it at home, at school, in our families, in our workplaces, and the positive impact that having those conversations and knowing, yeah, it's good to talk for all of us when it comes to our well-being. But of course, it's also about knowing and understanding the signs and symptoms when people are in distress, when people need clinical help or other forms of social support. And if we can get more confident in accessing that support, then we will be better off. We know that, you know, 1 in 4 people experience a mental health problem in any 1 year, mental health condition. And we know that there are, you know, greater levels of poor mental health in some Black communities, in some different ethnic communities, and that is because of social inequality. That's because of economic inequality, and we need to change that, and we need to address that, because those disparities in poor mental health are unacceptable, and we all have a role to play in reducing those and changing those. And Lade's book sets all of this out. So anybody who wants more information, I would really recommend Breaking the Barriers, which I'm sure all the information is going to be available from here, because this is really important for all of us, particularly right now when COVID is impacting some communities disproportionately as well.
Absolutely, and well said. Very important at this time, and certain times, different times, and times that are affecting many people that are at home. If you've just joined us, welcome to the Extraordinary Achievers. Today we have Simon Blake, OBE, the Chief Executive of Mental Health First Aid England. We also have Coach Lade, the author of Breaking the Barriers, an early intervention into mental health issue. They join us today to talk about mental well-being and mental health issues. We are going to go back to you, Coach Lade, and we're going to ask you, what is the role of awareness and the importance of education in mental health awareness?
I didn't hear what you said last, but I hope you can all hear me very well. I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me? Yeah?
We can hear you very well. I was asking, what is the role?
Brilliant. I would
Okay.
I would just talk as normal, because I have an idea that you're talking about the book Breaking the Barriers. And I'd like to say thank you very much, Simon, for that recommendation about this book. It's a book that was written out of lots of research, and obviously because of the work I have done in the Black, Asian, and minority ethnic community. It is really, really, really important. I wrote this book because I realized the gap that we have in our community is created by a lot of misinformation. It's because we have lots of barriers, lots of barriers in our community, and that's around how the government manages information, how the government supports people from the Black, Asian, and minority ethnic community. And I'm very glad that MHFE at the moment, after the Black Lives Matter, responded as a responsible organization to the key issues that Black Lives Matter brought up. Is looking at how our diet as ethnic minority communities, how our diet may be affecting our mental well-being. is the fact of the role of social media. You would not believe the number of ethnic minority community on social media at the moment, the impact of that on our mental well-being, the role of entertainment, the lyrics of the songs that we all listen to. All of these are very much linked together. And that's why it'll be nice for you to actually get a copy of this book. Lady Wynette already talked about the various chapters that we looked at in the book. It's also our culture, our religious culture. A lot of ethnic minority communities are people of faith. So, either you're a Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, Sikh, whatever religion you have, we just have one form of faith or the other. That has been seen or can be a major barrier. At the same time, it can be a positive, I won't use the word a barrier now, a positive door into recovery where a person is already ill or possibly have mental health issues as well. I wrote this book because I felt it was necessary for somebody from the ethnic minority community talking to us in our ethnic minority community about, listen, these are the barriers that we have. We have a long work to do. We can do this. We can break this barrier. The book didn't just talk about the barriers. It also talked about how those barriers can be broken. So I'm hoping one or two people would be able to win a copy today. Thank you, Lady Wynette.
Thank you, Coach Lade. And we are looking for those winners today. So they have to keep on listening, and the questions might just be in this video that we have today in this live interview. So thank you for that. Coach Lade, what else can you tell us that in terms of mental health and first aid I know you are a great champion for mental health and first aid.
I didn't get the question. If you could just kindly type it to me, it would help. The internet is really bad this evening in my area. Maybe it's just my area. It's just I'm actually hotspotting because
Okay.
I had to leave my Wi-Fi. I'm hotspotting at the moment.
That's perfectly fine. We will be back with Coach Lade. I'll be quick to type her over.
Okay.
We're going to go back to Simon
Thank you.
Blake, OBE. Simon Blake, OBE. In a workplace environment, what is the impact being made by your organization?
So what we know from this is that where you have mental health first aiders, so there was some research done that it found that almost 9 out of 10 people said that there were more conversations happening. About 9 out of 10 people said that they were more confident in understanding that they could access help and support. But also that there were more positive and supportive conversations happening between managers and their teams. So, what we know is that, where there is training, mental health first aid training, and indeed some other mental health training, is that increased openness, that increased willingness for people to talk and to understand that mental health is really important. Now, a year ago, we were obviously, lots of us were working in offices, and we were about to launch our My Whole Self campaign, which was really about saying that we have to recognize and understand that we are not people who leave the house in the morning, put on a work coat, go to the work door, walk in a professional, and then when we leave and we get home and we put our slippers on again, that we all live all of our lives all of the time, and that work needs to be a place that recognizes and values diversity of thought, diversity of opinion, people's experiences from diverse backgrounds, and make sure that people get the credit, the understanding, the reward, the opportunities equally within the workplace. And that's a really critical part of our work. So the My Whole Self campaign, which we launched about a year ago, is really about trying to ensure that we recognize and understand that the gender pay gap, the race pay gap, the opportunities that people get, the promotions that people do or don't get, is all part of mental health and well-being in the workplace. And so we're both doing the training where we're trying to improve people's skills and understanding to talk about mental health, but also saying that actually, everything that we do has to be looked through a well-being lens, because there is no mental health program or well-being program at work that can compensate for those sort of structural inequalities, or if people are not getting the fair opportunities, the opportunities for success, the recognition that they need. So that's really, that sort of two-part piece really, is recognizing that equality in the workplace is absolutely core to mental health.
Simon Blake, OBE, thank you for that. Simon Blake, what would you like to conclude by saying? And before you answer that, I'm just going to ask our viewers at home, if you're there and you'd like to know more about Mental Health First Aid England, this is your opportunity to ask Simon Blake, the Chief Executive, as he is on the screen now. So if you've got a question for him, please type it in. He's here to take your questions. And you've got any comments for him, please do share your comments with Simon Blake, OBE, the Chief Executive of Mental Health First Aid England. Simon Blake, OBE, what would you like to conclude by saying this evening?
I guess the most important thing for me is that mental health is not something that we leave to the experts. It's not something that is about all of us all of the time. Every single one of us has a brain. Therefore, every single one of us has mental health, and all of us will have our ups and downs within life, and some of us will have clinically diagnosed mental illnesses. So this is about all of us all of the time. And I guess I would also just want to say that this is about our humanity. This is about who we are. This is about checking in with one another. This is about asking people if they're okay and listening to their answers, and not having to be experts, but knowing that there are experts available. And this is about also trying to challenge the stigma. If you listen in the next 24 hours, you will hear people saying that what's going on in our politics is crazy. You will hear people say that some of the decisions that people are making are mental. You'll see images on the pages of our newspapers of people in straitjackets, as you saw with Donald Trump last week. Now, there are all sorts of things which are going on, which are wild, which are obscene, which are scandalous, but they're not crazy and mental. So all of us have a really, really important role to just tackle stigma in our everyday lives by thinking about the language we use, thinking about the way that we ask people whether they're okay and listen to their answers, and in thinking about how we educate ourselves, whether that's reading something on the internet about how we look after ourselves. And if you look at mhfaengland.org website, we've got some tools around self-care and a guide to thinking about how you check in with yourselves and other people. So this is about learning to look after ourselves, to think about the things we do and how we do it, and if we need support, not being afraid to ask for it, and if we see other people being needing support, to not be afraid to offer that ear, that hand. We're all in tough circumstances. Some people are in really tough circumstances, and of course, that thing about COVID being the great leveler is nonsense. It is affecting people differently, but we are all in tough circumstances, and that we can all look out for each other in our families, in our communities, in our workplaces.
Simon Blake, OBE, thank you so much for taking time out this evening and taking time out to reach out. We're aware that our viewers at home and the audience are going to watch this after will be pleased that they listened to what you had to say. We're pleased that you were on the show today to share your information, the inside information, the first-hand information of what mental health first aid is about and what you represent. We thank you for taking time out to do that. Should any other questions, do follow up. We're sure to pass them on to you and to put them back again onto our YouTube. We thank you for your time. Coach Lade, You wrote the book, Breaking the Barriers, and we're going to welcome you back to conclude this evening on mental health awareness.
Thank you very much, Lady Wynette. So I'm concluding with saying that we all have mental health. Mental health is a very important conversation that we cannot leave out, more so now with the pandemic and the attendant issues that the pandemic has brought to our various lives. It's time for us to be very much aware of what the signs are. If possible, acquire knowledge. Knowledge is one key thing that would see us, a lot of us, through these dark times. And one of the key knowledges for you to acquire is mental health first aid training or mental health awareness. Like I said earlier, I'm an absolute passionate mental health first aid instructor. But within the mental health first aid training packages we have, it's not just the 2-day mental health first aid training. We have the half-day mental health awareness training, which is just like, it's a bite-sized one, where at least you come and spend about 3.5 hours and you get to know what the signs are. You get to know the basic. We're not teaching people to become psychotherapists or psychologists or psychiatrists, no. Just encouraging people to have a little more insight about what mental health is. How can you self-care? How can you make sure that when those life stresses come, you can actually balance yourself? You don't get kicked off and knocked off the race of life. And that's why it's important. Mental health is a conversation that we cannot stop talking about. And I'm glad that Simon Blake is here out of his very busy schedule to sit with us this evening to talk about the importance and the role of mental health first aid. Particularly for me, it's because there is a disproportionate number of ethnic minority people in the mental health sector as service users. And this is one thing that we need to break. There are several factors to this. No one is saying it's about culture alone or about ethnicity or about, language barrier. There are various factors to it. We need to reduce the number of the Black, Asian, and minority ethnic communities that are at the receiving end, at the very tail end of mental well-being, of mental health. Mental health is a spectrum. You have the low, medium, and high. Let's get in there early. And that's why I wrote the book on early intervention into mental health. That is when we break the barriers around mental health and we break the barriers around the use of language in our community, where we have those very negative languages we use to describe people who have mental ill health, how you call them all kinds of very naughty words. In my language, there are lots of naughty words. They call people who have mental ill health. When we are able to normalize, just like a person having diabetes, high blood pressure, or any other form of illness, let's normalize the fact that it's an illness. So let's treat it. Let's deal with it. We should not ostracize it. So I'm going to end on this note with the cachet for my the byline for my organization, which is the news organization. Please follow us on social media platforms. We'll do a lot of updates, which is let's talk about mental health. And that means it's a continuous conversation, it's not a one-off. So let's talk about mental health. Thank you so much for having me this evening, Lady Wynette. It's an absolutely important conversation that we cannot stop to talk about. But however, what's important is let's get the knowledge for us to stay sane, the knowledge for us to know the services we can go to where things go wrong, and they can go wrong sometimes. So it is important. Thank you, Lady Wynette.
Thank you for taking time out. Thank you. No one has claimed to be an absolute and total expert in matters of the mind. However, many a men and women have taken time out to understand, to seek wisdom, and importantly, to assist. Today, we would like to thank such a man and such a woman as our guests on the Extraordinary Achievers, Simon Blake, OBE, the CEO of Mental Health First Aid England, and Coach Lade, the author of Breaking Barriers. We thank them for their work and their contribution into the community. We thank them for being a voice of action, and we thank them for the resources. There's a quotation that says, if we start being honest about our pain, our anger, and our shortcomings, instead of pretending they don't exist, then maybe we'll leave the world a better place than we found it. By Russell Wilson. There's another quotation by Fred Rogers that says, anything that's human is mentionable, and anything that is mentionable can be manageable. When we can talk about our feelings, they become less overwhelming, less upsetting, and less scary. I would like to welcome Coach Lade back onto the screen, and I would like to welcome Simon Blake OBE back on the screen if they're still back in our studios. I'd like to thank you, Simon Blake OBE. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us this evening. We know that you've also had some personal family to deal with, and we say we appreciate you and we acknowledge you even more that you have taken time out to actually be with us. Thank you for doing that. Thank you so much. Psalm 38, verse 9 says, Lord, you know I long for my help once more. You hear my every sigh. Jeremiah 30, 17 says, I will restore you to health and to heal your wounds, declares the Lord. Now I'd like to welcome a guest that's been waiting patiently in the back room. I'd like to welcome Caroline. Before Caroline speaks to us, we're just going to play this video for you. Caroline, the CEO of Think Tank 720, and you've written a book, Challenges of Identity, Psychological Perspective. Welcome to the Extraordinary Achievers Show this evening.
Thank you for having me, Lady Wynette, and one of my mentors, by the way. Nice to be interviewed by yourself. One of the lady that inspires me a lot.
And I am grateful for you encourage me so much. I am grateful. Author Caroline, can you please tell our viewers why you decided to write the book Challenges of Identity?
Oh, well, I decided to write Challenges of Identity from a psychological perspective simply because a lot of people do suffer with challenges within their identities from different environments, social backgrounds, and communities. So what I did, I was suffering with my own identity from different levels and perspective of life. Um, I looked around my community and I saw that I was challenged. I was living in a double consciousness of life whereby I have a double identity, whereby I'm both British, African, and I'm also an African. So when I went back to Africa, I wasn't accepted as an African. I was seen as a British girl. And when I came back to the United Kingdom, I was seen as an English girl. So that was, for me, it was a challenging notion because I thought to myself, emotionally, am I being rejected by my own culture, my own community? Even though it was some words that were saying that were banter, but on another level, I took it to a level where it was, what is it? When I go back to England, it's like I am accepted as a white or English person. When I go back to my own culture, I'm not accepted there as much as they say. So what is it really going on? What is my identity? How do I navigate within these two identity? This was one of the reasons why I wrote Challenges of Identity from a psychological perspective, but also how different people deal with different identities in different social environment and how they emotionally connect, also their well-being in regards to their identity.
Thank you. So were you inspired by your experiences?
Very much so. I was very much inspired by my experiences in regards to when we was younger. All right, so when I was younger, I was in a gang, right? I was groomed into it, a girl gang. And so from that aspect, I thought to myself, right, I'm trying to be something that I'm really not, or someone else wants me to be. So from that aspect, I thought, you know what, I am challenged with this. I was very challenged with the language, the communication of what they were um, using, and also because I was at college at the same time I was going to college. The people that surrounded me weren't in school, in college or anything like that. So it was like a double consciousness of studying a certain language and then going back into your community, your environment. Then they're teaching you certain type of way of living and life. So it was like as if I was living two double lives at the same time. Therefore, also at my university level, I was also challenged to see actually your reasoning, how you used to reason, is not how you're supposed to have reasoned. So it gives you that sort of emotional, how can I say, emotional reasoning, but on a different perspective and different levels. That is that's those were part of my challenges.
Mhm. And how would you say, we're talking about mental health awareness, we're talking about mental health well-being, we're talking about the resources that are out there. We had Simon Blake OBE from as the chief executive from the Mental Health First Aid, and we had Coach Lade with her book too. How would you say that your book helps those with mental health um, issues or in awareness of mental health at this moment?
Yeah, for example, this book, Challenges of Identity, a Psychological Perspective, I unpack in this book, right, in one of the chapters, of a young lady who was trapped in a man's body. She was a woman, but she was trapped in a man's body. So her mental well-being was also distracted because she felt suicidal. She felt that it's not, I'm not supposed to live in a woman's body. I'm supposed to live in a man's body. She felt fearful, like there was fear all the time as to how she can unpack this notion to her mother and the community as a whole where she lives in the environment. But once she got attached to herself and identified who she really was, is when she was able to come out emotionally and tell people that actually I feel like I'm a man, so I'm gonna um, take myself into that image of a man and have the surgery, proceed to have the surgery done as a man. So this book can also self-help people that are going through a mental, emotional well-being problem, right? Once you identify who you are and how your mind is, how you're thinking, should I say, mentally, you can able now to translate that to people, and people could understand you or either reject or accept you in that regard. There's many things that we deal with mentally before it comes on an emotional level. Mentally, you could be thinking that you're not worth it. You're not capable of doing whatever you need to do to be who you are in life. But then emotionally, other people could see you as a happy person in that environment. So that where it comes to identifying who you are genuinely to people in different environments can become a challenge. That's how this book can help people or self-help people that need it in terms of identifying who they are and how they can unpack their emotional well-being by the identities and the challenges that they face.
Thank you, author Caroline. You do so many other things that you do in the community, and you're absolutely amazing. And that's how we met many, many, many moons ago. And I admire your resilience. I admire the way that you reach out for others in such an amazing way. Is there something you'd like to tell our viewers and to conclude this evening? Anything at all that you want to tell us about this
Yes,
evening?
absolutely. As you quite rightfully say, that I do so many things in the community. I'm one of the founders of Think Tank 720. We have welfare, mental health well-being courses and IT courses coming up actually. So this is right up the alley now that we are having this discussion. So very soon, if you go on our website, Think Tank 720, wellbeing.org, you will find those mental health well-being courses that are coming up and the IT courses, because we found that during lockdown, as my learned friends have just come up, I've said a lot of people suffer with the mental health well-being and how to interact during this difficult time that we're going through. Secondly, I'm completing my second book. This is a second series of Challenges of Identity, a psychological perspective. It's called Digital Identity. My second book is coming out. It's about the digital identity. Now we've started to socialize on a different level. This is more digital now. How is that going to affect our mental well-being when the social perspective of it, of a physical perspective socially, has been cut off? So it's about the system changing now. How is our well-being going to be during this process of the system change? Then that's really what. And thank you so much for having me on your show. It's wonderful to see women such as yourself fueling out this information, because a lot of people need this information. There's so many people that do not have the tools to cope with such environments at this current time that we're living in. And so it takes courage, it takes wisdom, and it takes humbleness and humility, which I found in you so much so.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Officer Caroline. You know, I have a lot of love and a lot of respect for you. And thank you so much for taking time out and joining us on the Extraordinary Achievers. If you've just joined us or you've been with us, I'd like to let you know that we have 2 books of Breaking the Barrier that we will be giving away from the Extraordinary Achievers. And we also have 2 books that we will be giving away from our author, Caroline. That is our gift from you, from us at the Extraordinary Achievers to you. And if you followed us into the comment boxes, we are going to tell you how you are going to win those books. And we will also announce the winners of those books in the comment section. I pray for the day that mental health challenges lapses and not become a stigma anymore, but a reality, that at times we fall and we need help, and help is out there. Don't suffer in silence. If you're concerned about your mental health state, or you know someone that you are concerned about their mental state, please inbox me so I can get you in touch with the experts, the people that are doing, the doers, the resources, the ones that have the tools at hand. I also know of a gentleman called Obi. He has Mindwill, and he's connecting people with psychiatrists, with mentors, with coaches, with everyone else. Please inbox me. Should you be concerned about your mental health, it's not a stigma. Should you be concerned about someone else's mental health, it's not a stigma. It's a fact of life. I often say that many a times, many of us have lapses of our mental health. Our mental health is challenged in different ways. And especially in these moments of COVID-19, these are known, uncertain, and different times. We are mentally all challenged in different ways. I'd like to thank you for watching the Extraordinary Achievers show tonight. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for liking. Thank you for commenting. And I know today we've introduced you to the YouTube channel. We've also introduced you to our website, and it's something that has been new to most of you. We will also share this episode on our Facebook page, and we look forward to welcoming you next week and every Wednesday at 8 p.m. We would like to thank our show coordinator, King Darren Robinson from We Fix It Media, who works in the background and does amazing things to make this happen. We would like to thank our background operators, Prince Jordan and Princess Kay. We would like to thank our coordinators, Melissa and Ms. Heather. And we look forward to welcoming you in the month of February. We will be talking about love, relationships, and intimacy. February, as it's known for its Valentine's and the month of love, as we know it, love is every day of the year. It's not just February. But in February, we're going to be focusing on love, relationships, and intimacy. We will mainly be on our website, theextraordinaryachievers.com, and we'll also be airing live on YouTube, and we will also be sharing on Facebook. We thank you for your support. We thank you for your encouragement, and we thank you for watching us. Have an amazing evening.
Thank you for watching. You can now follow us on Facebook and subscribe our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, share, and comment.